We need to talk about the 407, the most uncongested highway in the most congested city in North America. A toll highway sold by our government that has now 100x in value since the sale. And on top of that, they are more profitable than Google and all the largest companies basically in the world. It is actually staggering how profitable the 407 is. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions around the corruption behind this highway, why the tolls are so expensive, that we're going to break down in this video because it is just a fascinating business to explore. If that is a conversation you'd appreciate, slap that like button, hit a subscribe for more videos like this, because this conversation hit me when I was listening to Dougie Ford talk about building a mega highway, a tunnel underneath the most congested highway in North America, the 401, spanning the GTA through Toronto. Take a listen because this is a staggering project to endure.
We're getting it done. Sooner than later, we're getting it done. And then people will be able to get home sooner, or maybe have a little fun, sit in the sun, whatever they want to do. But it's all about getting people moving from point A to point B and getting goods to market as soon as possible. If we just sit back and do absolutely nothing and just say that's it, let people sit there in traffic all day long, who cares? It's costing us $11 billion. That's the worst decision. Even if we do a little bit at a time and keep the machines on the ground, that's what we should be doing. Never ever stop building. Never ever stop drilling.
Now, though this is really great, obviously for stimulus and building the economy and getting jobs, the real question is, and people point this out, why can't we use that money to buy back the 407? And this is the most interesting thing ever. Agree. However, it doesn't connect into Toronto downtown, or at least close to it. Toronto road infrastructure has to be the worst in North America. And if we take a look at that infrastructure and what it actually costs to utilize the 407 on the 407's website, it basically spans from Orono all the way to Burlington, again, through the city on the outer skirts. 401's a little bit closer in, but still it goes right through all the major areas that connect. So we're talking about an $80 toll charge. We're right next to it is, again, the most congested city in North America, which is the 401 we see right here, spanning from basically the airport here all the way down to Yonge Street. And to build a tunnel under this would just be absolutely insane when everyone's concluding, like, if we can just make the 407 a bit cheaper, it's very uncongested, we can split the traffic up. But that can't happen anymore because it's a privately owned entity. Nobody can come in anymore and tell the 407 what to charge and how to charge, and it is not cheap by any metric. Now, a more common drive for me on the 407, let's see what this would cost, because typically somewhere around the 404, I would be basically getting on here and I would be taking it to the airport. So right around on the 427. So let's see what this would cost us. It'd be around $18 without the transponder, which is pretty pricey still. I'm not sure if that includes taxes and everything else. Again, around $20. And this is pretty much during a weekday. If we do take it on weekends and holidays, that does drop the price down by about $5, a little bit cheaper. But again, this is a significantly expensive drive considering we're only talking about one way. So if we were to use this both ways to each extent of the highway, you're talking about $150 plus bill, which is staggering. And the price of this has gone up, I think, like a huge percentage ever since it got sold privately, right? And I want to talk about the money behind it and who actually owns it, because you are benefiting way greater than you think you are from this highway. And what people don't understand is the Canadian pension plan, the CPP, which basically up to the first $50,000, $60,000 worth of income that you earn, in Ontario, or basically Canada. I mean, that first half of that tax is pretty much just going to your CPP. And that's just going to your long-term retirement, right? And what's incredible is the Canadian pension plan actually owns 50.01% of this highway. They own the controlling interest of the highway. And then there's a few other companies, including SNC Lavalin, which had a lot of controversy within the government and issues as it was, and they only own a small 6% stake in it. But what's incredible here is people don't understand how truly profitable and mesmerizing this toll highway is. It is one of the most toll highways in the world. Like, profitability wise, it makes Google, Meta, ExxonMobil, Apple, and Johnson & Johnson's EBITDA, earnings before income taxes, depreciation, look like an absolute joke. I was watching this video called the 407 Fiasco and how big business deal turned sour, and you can go check this out. It's from a year ago. It's on the Small Cap Steve channel. Very intriguing and insightful stuff talking about the history of the deal, right? And I don't think in the time it might have been the worst deal for them, but the reality was this highway, exploded in growth. And let's talk about that growth because, taking a look at these numbers and seeing them from the company themselves, which, by the way, if we scroll up, if you own these shares and you're lucky to be a part of it, you're getting a pretty nice dividend, eligible dividend of $2.90, or sorry, 29 cents per common share, which is incredible. This company is paying a lot of hefty money to its shareholders, and it's a cash flow giant. Here's your operating expenses. And what you need to understand, and let me just simplify this for people that might not understand a balance sheet. We have the 3-month period, but we're going to look at the 6-month. So we got like a half a year look into 2024 and comparable to 2023. This company did about $780 million. So it's doing over $1 billion in annual revenue. And I mean, even just in the last quarter, it did $450 million. That's what, 1.7 billion, 1.8 billion, something like that annually. And the EBITDA, so if we take a look at the operating expenses, so from 780 million to function that highway over the first 6 months of 2024 only cost $103 million. Apple, Google, all these companies, just to operate their company, just to keep everything functioning and get those products sold, cost way more than that. Like way more. So their EBITDA, or basically gross profit, is like $676 million. Again, that comes back to that chart, right? When you take a look at this chart here, when you talk about almost 80% margins or gross profit, is just insane. It's like ludicrous how little expense it takes to operate that highway versus the money that they are just raking in. It's a crazy thing. Now, obviously, you got your depreciation and amortization. I'm not going to get into that. That's kind of a joke, just to pay less taxes on net income. Then you have interest and other expenses. Now, these, again, accumulate, but the company was still able to get a net income of $307 million, which is largely even higher than I think Apple's net income, because I think their net income hovers around 30%. And if we just take a look at the traffic in numbers and what people are spending, I can presume most people are doing the same trip that I would be doing, which averaged around that $15 price. So that is the average revenue per trip. And we can see basically average workday number of trips. If I'm reading this correctly, it's about 344,000. If I am reading that correctly. But yeah, it's really intriguing when you look at I feel like there's just a huge lack of people that are actually utilizing this. There is a lot of transponders out there, however. The number of transponders in circulation as of June 30th is at, if I'm reading that, because it says it's in the thousands, but I'm presuming this is just this number here. So this would be about 1.83 million transponders. And look at how much it's up over the first 6 months of last year. Even the average cost per trip is up. I mean, this company's printing. Their earnings are increasing in the double digits as well, right? Which puts them up there with companies like Meta. Like Meta's only growing revenue at 13%. And this company is growing at the 10 to 15% range. So, I mean, if there was one business you'd want to get in, it's this one. And unfortunately, us as laymen, pedestrians out there will never have this privilege. But I'm very blessed to say that those that complain most about it, remember, it is functioning as a tool to fund our retirement. We as Canadians still get a mass benefit behind this highway, but I don't know what the balancing act is to bring the price down enough that it could sever off a lot more traffic and justify the lower prices, because anyone that uses the 407 knows it's not really that busy of a highway. But I don't know how we're going to deal with the traffic problems. I live in Toronto. I feel the traffic. I see the traffic. I know what it's like just as much as the rest of you, and I'm very intrigued. But I love the city. I think it's one of the most diverse melting pots on the planet. The food's incredible. Culture's amazing. I love living here. I think it's one of the greatest cities in the world. But I'll pass the question off to you. Outside of the traffic, what do you think?